Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining. Today I have an interview with the lovely Zazuka, all the way from Berlin. I am getting this going a little early so that our friends can join us and we can get a nice audience going for her as she's about to join in a few minutes. Thank you so much for coming on here. We are still doing these, guys, okay? So one of the main features of this page, which was a bigger part of it earlier on, but during the summer, you know, everybody's traveling, people are not available or whatever. So it kind of slowed down. Other things kind of came into the picture, but I am still doing these interviews. So what I try to do is I scout ethnic, indigenous, Caucasians. The only thing is that they should speak English. That's pretty much the only requirement. And I try to bring them on so that we can hear about their life, hear about what they do, how do they, express culture in their modern existence here on this planet. And there are a lot of really cool benefits to this. I wrote them down. So it allows unfamiliar audiences to, ethnic Caucasians to get a chance to know, who we are, where we come from, what we do, that we're basically just walking around this planet and that we're here. It allows an audience to hear stories and experiences surrounding culture in modern times. I'm a big advocate for cultural revitalization, so I do see a purpose in culture. I do see a necessity for it, especially as things become more technological and individualized, especially here in the West. It allows for us to celebrate individual accomplishments by our community members, which is so cool to me because so many of us have worked so hard and have accomplished so much, and I just have always felt like there really is a good reason to talk about the things that we've been able to do, our successes, and basically to humanize ethnic Caucasians, kind of as a response to historical stereotypes, because typically people who have heard about our people, they've maybe read a book or they've heard things, in passing, and then when you get to meet people, automatically it humanizes everybody. So let me go ahead and introduce to you Zazuka. I'm so excited. I linked her profile to the post about this interview. She's a musician. She's a Jordanian Berlin-based composer, producer, songwriter, and she's of Adigha/Circassian heritage. And her music is so cool. It's so cutting edge. Like, it's just right on the edge there of combining all of these elements and really wrapping them together and creating just this amazing piece of art. So it says she has developed an authentic style, which is so true, for intercultural music arrangements and composition through her experience in bands, theaters, Sufi poetry groups, and various chamber ensembles. Like, she is the real deal, okay? Her composition works have been performed in Berlin, Beirut, Cairo, Cologne, and Amman. And in her most current work, the EP, which I'm going to mispronounce, my pronunciation is really bad, but it's Azam Yephu, is a healing exploration of the multiple facets of her linguistic and musical identity. She, in fact, speaks Adigha. She speaks our native language, and she infuses it into the music that she, writes and performs. And it is just so seamless, and it's so cool because you don't usually see or hear, I should say, our language and our cultural element being used in such a it's so true, and it says authentic and unique. That's so correct. Hello from Georgia. Hi. Thank you so much for joining. We have a nice group on here. I'm waiting for her to sign on. Let me go ahead and see. Maybe she's here. But I'm so excited. Yay! So we have a lot of international folks on here. So thrilled. Thank you again for joining. I do have at least three more. I'm so excited. 3 more of these interviews lined up. Not with dates, but just consent, basically, that there are at least 3 more people who are willing to hop on here with me. It does require a certain level of bravery, so I always, acknowledge that this could be very much out of somebody's comfort zone, and that I very much appreciate people who embark on this with me. So we have a folk singer. So I know, I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Zanshawa. I'm waiting for her to sign on. Let's see. All right. So hopefully she'll be on very soon. I'll let people come in. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. I know it's when we do these international interviews, the timing is always kind of, what can I say? What's it called? Different, it's not like after work, this is a perfect time for her and a good time for us. But again, this will be on the on my grid afterwards. So in case you can't watch the whole thing or you're not able to tune in right now, you can always share the link. I please support these interviews. There she is. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add her. Yay. Zazuka. And then Instagram will do its magic and she'll connect. I'm so excited.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So audio. I guess we wait until video shows up.
Yeah, it's okay. It's gonna take a second, maybe.
Mhm.
How are you?
Hi.
How's your day going?
I'm quite well, thank you. I was like just propping the phone so that it doesn't fall.
I
In the
know.
last minute, my stand gave out, and that's why I'm a bit late,
Oh,
but it should be working.
I know. You have to love those last minute hiccups, right?
It's always like that. That's just one thing you can count on,
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to try, you can close this out and we can try to reconnect again. That's no problem. These types of things happen all the time. It's not a perfect. Oh, there you
Oh,
are.
it was just
Yay!
my
Yay!
camera was on the wrong, like it was the wrong way around.
No
Sorry.
problem. No problem. Trust me, these things happen all the time. Sometimes we lose connection. If something ever happens, I'll just restart the whole thing all over again. I'll come back on and we'll just carry on like nothing happened.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate your trust in me and your bravery in kind of doing this with me on my page. Um, I'm so excited to hear everything that you have to say, and I know that we have some people on that are actually probably just as excited as I am. You're so talented, and I really just can't wait to hear how that brain works. How does everything come together? Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We'll try to break it down.
All right. Excellent. Okay, so let's just get straight into it. Please introduce yourself, your connection to the Caucasus. Just kind of give us a background on, just bring us up to like right now.
Mhm. Okay. So my name is Zaina Azoka. That's what it says in my passport. So, I'm a Circassian, or Adigha, as we call ourselves, from Jordan, and my mother and my father's side are both from there. And yeah, through the years, I migrated again, and this time by choice. As you know, our people were forcibly exiled from their homeland in the Caucasus, and I had the choice of moving to Germany, which was not easy, but still my choice. And now I live in Berlin. I'm working as a composer, producer, and songwriter. Again, it's been a long way until I got to this point where I can do this full time. And yeah, there are many things along the way that we can talk about maybe as the interview goes
Okay.
on.
Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. I've done a lot of moving as well. I completely know what you mean by difficult, but it's kind of a long game. You have to just kind of keep your eyes on the reason why you moved. So I'm so happy to hear that. At least when it comes to your, musical career, you were able to, get that going, and now you're doing it full time. That's amazing. Um,
Mm,
Next question. How did you connect with your lineage in the past, and how are you doing so as an adult?
okay. In the past, so basically, I didn't know what it means to be Sherkas or Adia. I just knew that there were some like differences from our culture and language from my classmates, just the way that I would say certain words or I would pronounce my name uh, and they would mistake it for an Arabic name, like ethnically Arabic name, and just little things like that would kind of give me a clue that I'm different. But then the first time that I consciously had contact with, let's say, my culture or ethnicity other than what was going on at home, which is, the dancing music, the games, the food, etc. Uh, was in the Jil Club in Amman,
Right.
and I enrolled, I think I was 10 or 9 years old, and I enrolled in their dance classes.
Oh,
So yeah, it was very exciting times because they had some really great intensive programs even for the people starting out. And so, there was a lot of excitement and going on stage at festivals and dressing up and having the costume like, hand tailored to your size, etc. And so that combined my love for music with my love for reconnecting with the culture. And
right.
then one of my uncles was visiting from Nalchik. He managed to repatriate in a time where the Soviet Union was falling apart. So, he kind of um, had the chance to do that in a very opportune time for him to establish himself there. And when he came back, I guess I was also around 10 or 11. I'm not sure if it was the same summer where I was in the dance troupe, but he asked me if I speak Adigha, and I was
Ah,
like, "Oh no!" And he was so shocked, and he was asking my parents, like my mother, how come you didn't teach this girl Adigha? And my mother, I have to say, my parents, they both love the culture, but they wanted us to grow up first as humans and not to have too many complicated like generational trauma and so many languages going parallel with what we're learning at school and what we're speaking with our friends and then having so and so my uncle started teaching me every day in the summer, would sit me down and start teaching me, and then when he left I tried to carry on with my grandmother, which was an interesting process because sometimes she wouldn't have her false teeth in, so she would speak the letters in a different way. And I would learn that and then say it to my aunts and my mother, and they would just crack up laughing.
that's
And what are
so
you talking about?
cute.
Yeah, but Nana said that. So, you
Oh,
know, so so it was like kind of taught me to take it with a grain of salt that people are gonna laugh at you while you're learning this thing. And I just Yeah, a lot of times I was discouraged because I felt a great shame that I can speak so many languages so well. How come I can't speak Adigha so well? But you know, when you don't have that many people to practice with, then it's very much struggle uphill. So anyway, so much for that reconnection. And yeah, it just comes and goes, you know, as life kind of dictates. Sometimes you're busier with other things, and it's really a conscious effort sometimes to reconnect. So,
Definitely. I can relate so much to your relationship with Adigabza. I'm not a fluent speaker for the same reasons, just, we had a lot of Arabic. I grew up with hearing it, but for people to speak to me was not, it was like I'm learning English in school. We're speaking Arabic at home. I think it was just a lot for my parents. Plus, they had just moved to a new country and there's so much going on. But I also have this thing where it's like when I try to pronounce, I'm like, I know that I'm not doing it properly. And I'm just like, just get it out, just say it. But I'm so embarrassed.
mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah, it's some days are better than others with this, kind of shame. I kind of some days I just accept that it's not coming to me. And then, for example, if we're in a situation like Adigha Khasa, the societies where the Adigha like meet in different countries around the world,
right.
sometimes they're Turkish speaking and I can speak
Oh,
Turkish.
okay.
So they speak to me in Adyabs and I answer in Turkish,
Oh.
so it's kind of like I accept that I'm at this place today and it's fine. We can have a conversation as long as I'm understanding it's something, it's a practice. So some days are better than others. And some days I surprise myself, like I take a quiz online or, there are a lot of people with different educational initiatives and recently, I've discovered quite a few online quizzes,
Oh,
which, yeah, I'll send you links if you like.
yeah, totally.
Um, so I'm surprised how much my brain has stored the words that I never use, but I still remember what they mean. So, yeah.
Amazing. There's a YouTube channel that a friend shared with me. It's called Little Aslan,
Oh,
and it's two, like, looks like a brother and sister in a family. That's my level of Circassian. It's like, Shanta, like, boy, and because that's what I grew up hearing is, you know,
yeah.
for
They,
children or things around the house, but
yeah, yeah,
conversational, expressing myself. Unfortunately, I have been colonized. My tongue has been colonized through
yeah,
our just
exactly,
family.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah, maybe something for one of the upcoming questions,
Yeah.
but uh, yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the next question. I know.
Yeah, let's see, because I think there's some of them that touch more upon these topics
Right.
as I,
And they're all
yeah.
kind of sometimes we'll answer a question. I'm like, oh yeah, we already kind of talked about that. Um, okay, so what's something you think is important that people should know about your culture?
Um, so when you say your culture, what exactly are you referring to?
I let's talk about because I know growing in up in Amman, as you said. So let's start with whatever's easier, whatever comes to mind first. Either your Circassian identity or the mix, if that's more, you know,
Mm,
the mix of what it's like to have like these layers to your identity.
yeah, I think the mix is more interesting to talk about because then I can really be more authentic. I can't like say proclaim to represent um, a person like to say like I'm Adia and that's it, because that just would not be true.
Right.
Uh, I think something people need to understand is, I would say as a Jordanian national, who then migrated to Germany, and now I have the German passport after like 10 years. As a Jordanian national, previously and still maybe in the future again, I don't know. It's important for people to understand that we come from so many different ethnicities, and that Jordan is a very interesting place in terms of how it has always housed people fleeing from wars throughout the ages, starting from when it was part of the Ottoman Empire to this day. You know, all the tragedies that are happening in the countries around us. People flee towards Jordan, and for some people it's a transit. For some people it ends up being like, okay, I'm here now. I might as well try to thrive here. Um, and for some people, it's yeah, very much a welcome destination after they are forced to migrate for or flee for whatever reason. So yeah, that's something I really want people to understand, that there's no one phenotype or culture or accent or whatever that represents Jordan. It's true of any country, but like, especially of Jordan, because people know so little about it, because it doesn't really make waves in the news, because there's always sensationalism and tragedy taking up space in the news, and things that really rightfully should take up space in the news. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you. After really being into this page and really trying to grow my own knowledge on all the diaspora, communities and where we are, that's definitely something I've learned from the Jordanian diaspora, which I didn't know previously. When I lived in New Jersey, there were the community in New Jersey, let's say in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, which is what I can speak on. Most people came from Syria or Jordan. And my family, both sides, my parents are Syrian. They were born in the Golan Heights. So the Jordanian element was always just me with some kids in the dance group or, just getting to know. But I'm so grateful to have learned that there's just such a diversity there, and that, the Circassians just have like a really cool history in that region in general, going back, like you said, from the Ottoman time. Really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, cool, but also sometimes, a lot of times, tragic. Like there's always this bitter sweetness about what kind of mixture of people are coming together, in that region, how they got there. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
on the one hand, we're so happy that we landed there,
True.
because we are treated, you know, relatively well. And on the other hand, you always think back to, what if the war had never happened 150
Right,
years ago, we never were forced to leave, etc.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's very true. Very sober thought.
Mm,
Um, okay, let's see. On my page, I'm constantly trying to spread just the awareness, the education on the word Caucasian. Um,
mm,
so here I have, and I ask, this is on, I send this list to everybody. So it's just kind of like, how do you feel about the Western countries using the word Caucasian to describe the descendants of Western Europeans, um,
mm, mm.
that whole
Yeah,
topic.
inaccurate. It's just,
Yeah.
in a word, it's inaccurate, and it really, uh, yeah, it makes me angry as well, because I don't like inaccuracy and misinformation in general. And it just erases a whole part of history, and it erases us. So, I mean, it's great that there's now this educational platform you have through your account, and that people actually take it as hopefully like a springboard to dive into more like into depths of learning about different uh, peoples of the Caucasus. There's also a really silly typo and mispronunciation or what do you call it? Like a mixing up with caucus. Some people say caucus, and that means something completely different. And the two words have nothing to do with each other. They have different roots. So, yeah, the word, I mean, when I came upon your account, I had mixed feelings like, wow, amazing, someone is talking about this. But on the other, like the shadow side, I was like, oh man, I just wish I could stay away from this whole topic and having to think about it and, you know, just let them have the word and just let's get on with our lives and use another word which we call ourselves,
Right.
you know. But then you think about how there's potential to really um, expose the inaccuracy and in turn talk about um, the culture and the history and yeah, just educate
Right.
people. So it's amazing what you
Thank
do.
you. I felt like it was such a good way to get in is through this word. And then from there, it's like, look, look at what this word really means. It's so awesome.
Actually,
Yeah, actually, right.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I can agree with everything that you said. Growing up here, filling out government forms, hearing it on the news, when they talk about, white Caucasian male, 35 years old, and it's like, oh, you're not Caucasian, I can remember feeling that so young, like, this is weird,
Yes,
So,
yes. Also, especially because there's the way that the way the word um is like how the term was coined and how this, Blumenbach, this German um oh my gosh. I mean, just mentioning his name just
I know.
but yeah, so how he categorized people, but and how he procured the skulls w on which he based his,
Yeah.
categorization of people is just so horrible. They're horrible stories. The way he received these skulls, whose skulls they were, and how they died. It's just really, really dark history of humankind. And then he's still portrayed as this person who wanted all peoples to be equal and saw peoples as, and no, I mean, you can't say that and, go around collecting skulls that, were procured from people who were maybe kidnapped from their families or died of horrible causes because of who they are ethnically, and then just say you're a big philanthropist. It's the ultimate virtue signaling what's going on with this guy. And so that's one thing that really pisses me off about specifically the sorry for swearing.
It's fine. You're in good company. You're fine. I grew up in New Jersey. You're fine. That's nothing.
Yeah. So how he named this, I recently learned about the skull of the young girl who was used in his categorization where he said this skull looks like this, it has this characteristics, it comes from the Caucasus, and it was a young Georgian girl who was um, basically bought by someone like and you have these European stock people who lived in Russia at the time, and they were exotifying people, especially girls of the Caucasus. And so this young girl, she was treated as someone's possession, and she died horribly because of this exotification. I won't go into details. And then her body was, yes, the way the skull was procured was also a very, very dark story. And the person who brought it to Blumenbach, it's also a shady transaction, and that person was also part of the crew of big time imperialists at that time, and was sailing on his ships. So I don't want to mention their names. I know their names, but it's enough that I mentioned this German guy's names, and I don't want to talk about them anymore.
To give them the infamy, right? I know what you mean.
So yes, let's talk more about our people.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, once you just scratch the surface of the history, it like unravels. And my point today, like living in America and growing up in America and just observing the way things have gone and history, the way history is told, I do believe that shedding light on the history of this word could reduce the power of the white supremacy that is upheld by it, which for me is a little bit of a passion, just a horrible, it's a scourge on society. So, when it's made up.
Yes, we need idealists like you. I have a very big shadow pessimist side, but I also have the other optimist, hopeful side. And I definitely think, in general, whatever happens afterwards, it's good to shed light on truth. It's good to have varied accounts of history, especially from oppressed peoples. Um, because, for example, once I was telling some colleagues, well, maybe we'll get to that in the next question. But yeah, it's in general a good thing to expose
Definitely.
truth and varied and diverse
Definitely.
versions of history, because it's always the people who win wars and have the most press, the most people who get to tell the story, and it shouldn't be that way.
Right. You can't expect your oppressor to give the accurate version of your story. You have to step up and tell your story, right? Which is why I love having these interviews, because every time I talk to somebody, we hear a part of it. We hear the impact of what our history, like till today, of how it affects us just by where we live. Why did you grow up in Jordan? Even that, why? So thank you for that. For people who are watching, that was an introductory masterclass on basically what this whole page is about. Okay, let's go to the next question. I really want to get to your music. I don't even mind just holding off on these questions. And let's just talk about
that intention, but somehow it's also a big passion of mine to talk about these topics. So
okay,
we'll get there.
well, we have, let's see. There's so many, I mean, I want to hear all your answers to this, but I also want to hear about your music. So let's take a break from these questions and just talk to us about when I read, and I did read to the audience here about like composer, producer, songwriter, you've been in bands and theaters and poetry groups and chamber ensembles. How does your, I'm sure it's a huge part of it, but can you explain to us and tell us how does your background play into your career and your craft?
Mm-hmm. Okay. There are some really cool comments, by the way. I don't know, we can't really go into them all, but to answer the question, how does the background play into it? In a very organic way as it comes, I would say.
Okay.
I only recently really consciously brought it foreground with the song Horira that I released in May.
Which I love.
Thank
It's so good. It's so good. Guys, you have to please look her up. Her song is so good. There's nothing like it. I mean, it's so unique. Seriously.
you. So yeah, in a way there's some things that happen like rhythmic ideas or certain ways of chanting or certain, you know how you can access your voice from different places in your body and just, you know, having a different way to access my voice because I speak a bit of Adigha is like just another tool or just another color in my palette that I can and I paint with because um yes, I can only represent myself and I think peoples have always migrated across history, across nations and borders and multilingualism multilingualism is actually, you know, has always been quite normal. Um, so yeah, all of the aspects of my cultural identity and my environment have played into how the music comes out. And sometimes I choose to focus more about the Circassian part and sometimes not, you know. For example, once I had the opportunity to work with an orchestra and they're purely Western instruments, and I just thought, well, I could just go and make some standard soundtrack sounding epic track or whatever. But then I was listening to this song, the version of Zawartut, no, sorry, Vladimir Beron, of Mazguasha, and I wanted to see if I could translate that for the orchestra. And yeah, well, it's somehow translated. I don't know, it's a very different thing what came out and how they played it and how they felt it because they didn't know anything about the culture. So, um, yeah, just like an interesting experiment. And I'm still hoping to make more um, forays into, uh, you know, exploring, first of all, to sing in Adigha, which is a challenge, you know, to have that many consonants colliding and to flow, you know, rhythmically, you know. So, yes, it's it does play into it, but not necessarily. I have so many other aspects of my personality and, you know, different cultures I grew up with and, you know, I when I say grew up, I even mean when I was 28, 27, 28, and I moved to Germany, I considered it a second childhood, you know, and I got to know the Turkish community who, you know, they had been here for a couple of generations, and then I got to know so many different people, and I was learning Turkish and German at the same time, and you know, so all those things play in, you know. Even if I don't sing in German, it's somehow there, you know, the classical music influence here or something, you know. It's always present.
It's
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
right, and it's so beautiful. So I personally like I don't consider myself an artist. But I do consider myself creative person. I was in a creative field for a long time. But I love speaking with creative people, people who have artistic inclinations, because they are so true to themselves. And I hear that when you speak, it's such an important part of who you are is to be true to yourself. And I admire that so greatly. Um, and growing up in America, America's famously this, when I was growing up, they called it a melting pot, then they called it a salad. It's always food.
Alex.
Yeah, because, yeah, so it's like like the entire world lives on this continent and they're constantly like crashing. Cultures are crashing into each other. And you just get to see through your life, like how these very different things that really have no business being together are now just like, they've just exploded into just like something completely new. And the idea of you being with in an orchestra, German orchestra, and helping them and guiding them through this meziguasha, and oh my, it gave me goosebumps. It's so inspiring because, like you said, it's not like they had a course or a seminar on what exactly backgrounds you're coming from, but they're using what they have and the tools that they know, and pushing that what you're kind of helping them, pushing that along. And girl, if there is a video or audio of that, share it with the
Oh,
world.
oh, oh, of the actual
Yeah,
session, you mean?
yeah.
Ooh, I think there's just, yeah, there might be a short clip that a friend made where I was just holding the score and then kind of, feeling it.
That's so cool. That's seriously so cool. And it's so interesting. Like I 100%, guys, I believe in preserving what was, as not just a reference for the future, but like it's really important that we have what we have preserved. But at the same time, and I don't know if you experienced this growing up, but there was a lot of like internalized shame about like you're being very American. I would hear that. You're very American, the way that you said this thing or you do this thing. And
Mm,
I'm like, I grew up here. I actually am really, really American. I mean, for better or for worse, but how do these
uh,
things mix?
I know exactly what you're talking about. This like um supposed pure
Right,
idea way of life, that actually no one is actually living. No one's really applying Khabsa 100% in their life. Everyone is somehow, I mean, if you really want to be such a purist, you'd be going against so many things in your daily life that it would just be a hassle. And then to go around and shame people for giving their kids Arabic names or saying, you don't look uh, like us enough or something like that. I get this like really rude comments all the time about how I didn't look Adigha. Like your, your eyes don't look Adigha. Like what is, we're so many different colors and shades and like you can have like people who are really brown and they have almost afro hair, like it's what is it, kinky hair.
right,
And then, yeah, and then you have people who are like pale as a sheet of A4 paper and like me. And and then you have like blonde haired, blue eyes, and like it's all different colors and variations. And so to go around shaming people for the way they look or which name they carry or why their parents called them an Arabic name or the way they behave, you know, because they're just trying to belong
right,
somewhere. You're mimicking your environment in order to, it's one of the basic ways of belonging, like to mimic people around you, and just kind of be like, I'm not a threat, I'm like you guys. It's a basic survival mechanism.
right.
So, I mean, it's I try to understand where that comes from when people shame Adia for acting a certain way that's not like 100% Shabza or um, yeah, it doesn't really suit their idea of what Circassian should be, you know. Mm, I could talk for hours about
Oh, I know.
this.
I know. There's a lot of pain there. And
Yeah,
um,
I'm sorry you had to go through that. I mean, it's really,
honestly,
what do they mean when they say that? That's another thing. And why are they saying that? It's just so, questions that keep you up sometimes.
yeah, I mean, I have tried to approach that side of our cultural experience with compassion, especially over the last few years, because I have learned about generational trauma. I've learned about all of those concepts of like, these issues didn't start when I was born. They started way before that. So like for me to feel bad. And you know, especially after beginning this page and just having the ability to speak to so many people, I realize how it's just a very, I'm going to say this in a diplomatic way, it's a very normal experience for our people, unfortunately. Like, there's nothing unique about this. I
Mm.
just think that talking about it and just being like, it's not cool, you know, to do that. Like, I understand why people do it, and just kind of acknowledging, like, it actually hurts the cause, which is building community and keeping people interested in this,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
culture.
people, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I know of a story where um, someone, I won't name names, but someone had quite darker skin compared to their siblings and was always told, like, you're not really one of the family, as a joke, but it's just very, these things really take you in a certain direction. You start to internalize these statements and kind of, um, that's a very strong colorism that's in our community as well. Or for example, I have a lot of hair on my arms that I didn't necessarily want to wax, apropos artists who wants to stay true to themselves.
Right.
And I just didn't necessarily want to keep waxing my arms and going through that pain. And, so it was, you would hear comments like, um, in the Circassian community about, like, we have such hairless skin because we're blonde, and then I would look at my arms and be just, kind of like, you know, so there's a certain featureism and colorism going on in our community, as in every
Right.
community, and I think it should just be uh, examined first of all, like, where does that come from? Why is there this beauty standard or certain features being praised over others? And yeah, why are we excluding people for looking a certain way or behaving a certain way? It's not helping.
Right.
And maybe it really comes down to that, just feeling exclusive somehow, and then just randomly taking some identity marker and saying, this is what makes me exclusive, and it has to be like me, otherwise it's not belonging to this identity
Right.
marker. I'm a bit abstract now, but I think
No, I understand.
people can follow, yeah.
I know, I understand what you mean. And I think that even that in and of itself is generational trauma from the very unfortunate human trafficking that our people endured in the past, and living in diaspora, and like all like the toxic sort of dynamics that went on, just that
Mhm.
are, you know, you either know them or you don't. You know, people don't really go around advertising all the hardships that they, especially our people, you know, endured living in foreign lands and things like that. So I just,
Yes, yes,
you know, a lot of people, when I say about how diverse we are, and I get some pushback from our own people, like, you know, this is the look, you know, this is the way it should be. And I'm like, dude, you can't convince me. Sorry, like, I have eyes. I've seen things,
yes,
you know.
exactly.
So,
I mean, our own family, there's so many different looking people that you cannot say there's one look. And also, I like, um, I endured as a child because I was quite introverted, and I would only be kind of motivated to speak if I was really like burning about something. But
right,
a lot of times my appearance was commented, and sometimes you would say, like, you look typical, like a typical, Adigha girl, and then some people would say you look nothing like so it's, you get these contrast, when you hear these contrasting statements, you realize how much BS it is. It's
right,
not,
right.
there's no basis for whatever these people are saying. They heard something and they're mimicking
Right.
it. minds of
it's very like it's not a very conscious way of speaking to
yeah.
other people. It's very like on a subconscious level. Um,
And it's especially for a sighted person who sees themselves in the mirror on a regular basis. It's the way we look is the basis for a lot of internalized statements that are sometimes on loop and don't necessarily help us to, have a um, um, healthy behavior pattern. It just the way we think affects the way we talk, affects the way we behave and what we do, etc. And then just all loops back. So, yeah, people's statements about the way Sherkas or Adia should look or not look is just stop it.
yeah. Just be nice, guys. Just be nice to people.
They should look
It's
happy and healthy,
right,
okay?
right.
Whatever healthy means, I don't
Right.
know for them. But yeah.
This Barbie movie just came out and it's so like people like love it. It sparked so many conversations just about women and image and the history of Barbie and all that stuff. And I feel like you can kind of tie that in because I feel like we all have a Barbie, a Circassian Barbie
Mm-hmm.
type, and it's unrealistic and it's kind of unfair, you know? Yeah, right. And it's like, even when I learned about the way our ancestors, the young girls would wear
Mm-hmm.
a corset
Yeah, made
from
of rib.
very young to shape their body. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's a cultural practice. Okay, that's fine, but we never did that. That's why, my waist doesn't look like, it's never looked like that. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's just for me like learning the context to some of the things that we deal with has been very helpful to just kind of let it go.
That and when you look through the lens of classism at everything in
Right.
history or daily life today, you kind of, and if you're a normal, logical, common sense thinking person, the train of thought takes you to a place where you realize how untrue a lot of these things that are presented as like historical facts that are across the board of all the Adia used to do this back in the day are just not true. For example, this binding of the waist. I mean, if you're a working class girl and you're bending to pick stuff up all the time or you're working how realistic, and you need your full lung capacity,
Right.
how realistic is it that you are wearing that corset? I just
Right.
don't buy it,
Yeah.
Maybe it was just the noble people who were like sitting around with their, doing their
Hmm. Embroidery and crafting.
embroidery and stuff, because they had the luxury of doing that and really good for them,
Yeah.
But yeah, it just makes you question all these things like there's a certain class of idea who are being talked about
Mm.
also,
Yeah.
because maybe their history was more documented because they had access back in the day, maybe if someone came with a photo, what do you call these old cameras,
Right.
and
Right.
was traveling around making a little travel blog of their discoveries in
Right.
quotes. And they're not, maybe they're more interested in photographing a noble family with intricately embroidered clothes, etc. And then it's like, okay, so we have this whole class of people who were just erased from history because no one was interested in photographing them because it wasn't like glamorous enough or whatever,
You
you
couldn't
know.
you couldn't turn it into a fantasy, basically. You couldn't
Also, yeah, yeah.
become a fantasy
So a lot of things, you can try to learn from oral history from your family, the generational wisdom, but unfortunately, a lot of people lose their grandparents or great grandparents without having had those conversations. So, yeah, everything with a grain of salt, and that's yeah, the only thing that's really important for me right now, in terms of reconnecting to the culture, is to learn the language well.
Okay.
And I, I'm trying.
I
Yeah.
have seen, I've gone through your posts and I've seen it's definitely something that you focus on, which is like cool things that you've. One of the videos that absolutely was so cool was your video about what's it called? Words that are like the sound that that thing makes. What's that word called?
Onomatopoeia.
Yes, onomatopoeias, right? So you have a video of that, like the word for dog, the word for frog, the word for crow, I believe.
Yes,
So there's a
and owl, and even weather. I didn't talk about that in the video, and then I said, yeah, there's, for example, wash is rain, and what, which is quieter, is snow. You know, things like that. And the funny thing is, I was talking to a Polish friend and an Irish friend who speaks Irish Gaelic, and they told me the words for rain as well in their languages, and they were also quite onomatopoeic.
wow.
And so it was so, yeah, I love to nerd out about these things.
Yeah, definitely.
Also a way for me to learn because I need to make some kind of association. For example, when I'm learning the month names, it's so interesting that you know, it's all connected to nature. It's not like, for example, we're in August. Who is August? You know, like
Right.
how come with one passage of our time after this guy we don't know?
Right.
And so last month was Badzorwa, which was like Badza means fly, so it's like, oh, it's the month where the flies kind of hit,
Wow.
you know. And then you'd have the month where the hunting starts in November, and then like Diraraza, which is when the sun starts coming back, because on the 21st, is it the 21st?
I
The winter
believe so.
solstice, the days start getting longer, so the sun's coming back in a way. Things like that, you know, and just I need to analyze the words and break them down and come up with games and, you know, all kind of silly tricks for me to
Very cool.
store the information in my brain. Um, yeah.
So,
Otherwise, yeah, it's just parroting and
right,
mimicking also helpful, but if I don't have enough people to do that with, I cannot do that with a book. You know, just
right.
keep hearing your own voice. It just would drive me a bit.
Our time is almost done. We have a few minutes left. I want to just ask you like one more question and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
So thank you. I just want to thank you so much for your time, for your just generosity with your openness and, you know, everything that we've discussed. It's been so lovely. So I
Thank
have, oh, thank you so much. I have a bunch of questions just about like the future. I mean, when you think of the future of our people or the Caucasus, you know, is there anything that you hope for or that you kind of like wish for our people just moving forward in time?
I wish for, and if anyone's listening, please spread this wish. I wish that there were more educational materials for, uh, yeah, both dialects, of course, but I feel like the Western dialect is definitely winning in terms of the apps that are being developed to teach it, and just the materials in general that I find online, which is why I'm learning a bit of Western dialect, even though my family speaks Eastern, you know, Qabarde, but I'm also learning the Western dialect because it's just for me, yeah, as someone who geeks out about languages, interesting to learn it. And I recently found, because I speak Turkish, I recently found, what do you call it? A
Right.
dictionary. Yeah, Turkey language nerd. I recently found a dictionary where the Western, Eastern dialect and the Turkish word are presented parallel, which is such an amazing resource, which was written by Fahri Huvaj. If anyone's Turkish speaking, that's a really amazing resource. Fahri Huvaj has also written quite a few books with translations.
Wow.
So you have the Turkish and the Eastern and Western dialects in one book. I think maybe there's even one book where it's Turkish, English, and Adigha. I yeah, but I just wish there was more resources, playful resources to teach the language to adults. So, just take a curriculum for teaching a language as a foreign language to an adult and apply it to Adiabsa. And I do have a book I was working on by Dr. Ibrahim Baroka.
Oh,
Which I received as a present from my cousin's husband, Hamad. So, uh, so yeah, he just gifted it to me, and I've been working through that. A lot of things are basics, but it's always good to go over basics because sometimes you skip something.
right.
And then there's like an app called, I think it's called My Lingo Adiabsa or something like
Oh,
this.
okay.
But I mean, maybe I can post the things I have in my stories in the coming days
Yeah.
so that people who are interested can look. Um, but that one is for Western dialect, and I've been going through that. And of course, there's so many common words, so it doesn't hurt to learn a dialect that your family doesn't necessarily speak. And also, please, please, one big, huge wish of mine is that people stop trying to say which tribe is better or which dialect is
Oh,
better.
yeah.
I mean, it's so the language is dying.
I
There's so few of us
know.
interested in preserving it. Oh, Optilingo, I see. John Tiamisha. Oh, yes. Also, yeah, shoot.
Thank you, Zanchila.
That's also very useful. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. So there's so many, yeah, different apps and things, but yeah, there just should be more because we're so many different types in terms of how we learn. I might be a more visual learner. I might be a more, oral, like acoustic learner. I might be learning through games. There's different ways that different people love to learn. So yeah, there should be as many different people developing different
Yeah. Curricula. Yeah. You're right.
maybe
Latin.
plural of curriculum to accommodate people's different learning needs, especially, to have more accessible needs as well, to accessible apps. Um, some people are not necessarily sighted, so they need to hear more. Um, and some people um, can't read such fine print, so maybe think of making things with larger print. Just to try to be inclusive of all learning types and different abilities to spread the language. I think that's the most important thing for me because in terms of repatriation and I mean, yeah. Hmm.
I love it. Thank you so much for all of your amazing just insights, sharing your experiences. I think that that last wish is very, very good. We're a homeschooling family, so I teach my children, um, and I understand the way curriculum works. It's so beautiful to see actually how a child can just pick something up when the curriculum is effective and makes sense to that child. So I
Yeah,
completely understand what you mean.
that's
Um,
lovely
yeah. So
that you're
they,
homeschooling them.
yeah, my children are growing up in a very different home than I grew up in. Very different than my parents. Every generation in my family looks very different from the last one. So we do need these tools. So, I mean, if anybody is, you know, getting into education, you know, sync up with someone, make it happen. You know, we can do this. This is within our capability. But thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your evening. We'll keep in touch. I will have my eyes on your stories for those cool resources.
I will post as I see
Okay.
stuff, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Okay.
It was so lovely to chat with you. Hopefully another time as well. Just I would love to know more about what you're doing, and yeah,
Okay.
so
Thank you.
lovely. Thank you so much, Noor.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your evening.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you everyone who joined.
And yes, thank you to everybody who joined us. And thank you for people who are watching afterwards. Just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. Lots of love, lots of thank you. Okay,
Bye.
see ya.